Today is Baba's 24th November. And Baba's talking about how the deity Dharma is very different from the other civilizations and religions. Because historically, there's different civilizations that rise and fall. And the deities is also a civilization that arose and fell. And what it left behind is something called Hinduism. And the other religions in the world, they did also rise, and there were big civilizations associated with them. And currently we are in Western civilization, which is on the edge of collapse. And the last time in Europe, when there was a different civilization, it was the Roman civilization. And there was the Byzantine civilization in the Arabic world. And so it is. Civilizations rise, persist for a while, and fall. And Baba's talking about how this is a civilization that is so unknown because of the small destruction that destroyed it. So now it's coming back again because of the big destruction. So the essence is, sweet children, you have come here to make your fortune of the kingdom. The more you stay in remembrance and pay attention to your study, the more elevated your fortune becomes. And the question is, by following which Srimad at the confluence age do you make your fortune elevated for 21 births? And the answer is that at the confluence age, the Father's Srimad is, become viceless. Make full effort to become soul conscious. It's a very different kind of civilization that's being created with very different kinds of human beings. So we have to become that kind. If you do not perform any negative karma, that means if you do not break your purity, then your fortune becomes elevated for 21 births. And the song is, my fortune is awake, and so I have come, and my fortune awakened. Om Shanti. You sweetest spiritual children heard the song. Did something happen along the way in your life, and all of a sudden your fortune woke up? I think that's what happens to BKs. We go along according to our karmic accounts, and then all of a sudden there is an encounter with Baba and everything changes. Yeah. Those who understood the meaning of these two lines of the song should raise their hands. Who said, I have come because my fortune awakened? The soul says this. The soul of each of you says, I have come because my fortune awakened. And which fortune is that? It is the fortune of going to the new world, and the new world is heaven, whereas the old world is hell. And all souls say this. A soul definitely must have a body, because only then can the soul speak. So the soul in the body says, I have come to school to make my fortune. Who is teaching you? There's this expression, jivatma. So jiv means body, but the translation is the soul in the soul. It's not quite exactly that. The soul in the body says, I'm here in my school to create my fortune. And who is teaching you? Shiv Baba, the ocean of knowledge. It is only the one Father who makes ordinary mortals into the immortals, the deities. He makes the impure beings into pure beings, residents of hell into residents of heaven. So this world of hell will be set on fire. Can you imagine the entire world in flames? It has to be. There is no other school in the world where people would say that they have come to the unlimited Father, nor is there anyone else who could say, I am the Father, the teacher, and the Guru. Even this Brahma cannot say this. Only Shiv Baba says, I am the Father, Father of all souls, the teacher, and the Guru of everyone. And he is sitting here teaching you. So you children should now make your fortune, use the teachings. Everyone gets the same teachings, everyone uses them differently and accordingly create their fortune. Children say, we have come here to make our fortune for the kingdom of the new world. So your fortune means your status. Your status is the reflection of how you use the knowledge. We know this old world is to be destroyed. The Father comes and establishes the new world. You are studying to claim your fortune of the kingdom for 21 births. That is, you have come here to make your fortune for the kingdom or of the kingdom. You are studying Raj Yoga here. Although this song was composed by the film industry, the meaning is now being explained to you again. Very often Baba mentions that he got his songs created by the film industry and he got his communications technology created by the IT industry and his transportation system created by, so he works through many different systems. And what he does through the BKs is something, but he does other things through other people. And there are even different presidents of different countries who say, God is making me do this or that. He might be. So it's quite interesting to think about what he does through whom and who does what, which is not God. Very difficult to assess, but it definitely, when he says this, you have to understand that he does a lot of things which is not through BKs. And he doesn't tell BKs everything. So here we are. This is our part. Just as the Father sits here and explains the essence of the Vedas and Shastras, at this time there is bhakti throughout the whole world. And in the Golden Age, there is no bhakti and no temples. So we can't say there's a religion of deities, right? Can we? You performed devotion for half the cycle, and now you have found God. Initially, there was the kingdom of those deities in Bharat, and gradually, taking 84 births, their fortune was spoilt. Now your fortune is being made once again. And the Father has come to make your fortune. So he's essentially teaching us the philosophy of karma so that we can do that karma, which creates that consequence of becoming deity in the golden age. So the main karma required is this: children, remember me. You did become sinful souls. Initially, there is the bhakti of Shiva, Shiv Baba alone, and that is called unadulterous devotion, which means you're faithful to one. But then devotion became adulterated, which means adulterous, and that is you start to remember many. So, for example, in the Abrahamic religions, they say you can remember God alone, especially in Islam, only God, nobody else. And Christianity, there's God, but then there's Jesus Christ, Virgin Mary, and lots of saints, and it's you remember a lot of different people. In Judaism, only God. In Buddhism, nobody. But you do good karma. And in the what is it called? The religion of the Parsis, they remember the light, but no people. I see. Then in Hinduism, you remember people, trees, the sun, everyone. So you children should first of all have faith that the one who is called God is teaching us. He does not have a body of his own, but he sits in this body of Brahma Baba and speaks, just as you souls begin to speak when you enter your bodies. Sometimes a person seems to have died. You know, there's a condition called catatonia. Have you heard this? Catatonia? It's when somebody has all the signs of being dead. They're called catatonic, or they have catatonia, and then they wake up after some time. So it's much, much deeper than a coma. Because in a coma, the person's still breathing. But in catatonia, they're dead, but then they come back. So he says, he's talking about this. Sometimes a person dies, but then on the way to the cremation ground, the body starts to move. So does it mean that the soul left and then returned? He said, no. The soul is very subtle and was hiding somewhere. So it can't hide somewhere, but it was like, it's stopped performing, but it's still there, but it stopped being active. So it would be said that the person became unconscious, but no one was aware of that. So it sometimes happens like that. Sometimes someone even wakes up on the pyre. So the fire starts, he wakes up. And so he gets lifted off the pyre. So what was that? The soul was hiding somewhere and then came back to his own place. So it could be that the soul temporarily disconnected from the body. But when the soul has absolutely left the body, then the body is just a corpse. The world of souls is the supreme abode, Paramdham. And you know that we used to be in that region. First of all, we souls came down from our home of light to the golden age. And the people of Bharat who were deities would have come down first. And the people who establish religions, they remain taking care of those religions until the end of the cycle. So Buddhism continues throughout the rest of the cycle. Christianity also continues. But it is only those of the deity religion or dharma, I'm not going to call it a religion, those who used to rule the kingdom, whose name has disappeared. So deity dharma became Hindu dharma. No one says that they are of the deity dharma, because you have to be a deity to be of the deity dharma. So the father explains the people of Bharat forgot their dharma. Our household dharma was pure, a civilization of being worship worthy and still living in families. It was a completely viceless kingdom of the emperor and empress, and they are called Goddess Lakshmi and God Narayan. But actually there's only one God, and he alone is called the ocean of knowledge. Lakshmi and Narayan have no knowledge at all. Only Shiv Baba is the ocean of knowledge, and he is sitting here giving knowledge to you, children. And you are now studying, but when you go there, you will forget all this. At this time, each of you souls understands that you have the recording of 84 parts within you. And you souls are now receiving knowledge. Then you will go and rule your kingdom in the golden age. You say that you have passed around the cycle of 84 births and you are now claiming the sovereignty of heaven from Baba. Each of you claims your inheritance from the grandfather. You know, in the Native American people, they always speak of God as the grandfather. Wakantanga, that's their name for God. And I don't think there's anybody else who thinks of God as a grandfather, except BKs. So this is, you're claiming your inheritance from the grandfather according to your own efforts. So the inheritance is not shared equally among all of you. Otherwise it should be. The knowledge is shared equally, but what you do with the knowledge is what you take. On the path of Agyan, it is shared equally among all the children. And the unlimited Father says, I am establishing paradise. And the status you claim depends on the efforts you make. And the effort is remembrance. So the more you remember the Father, the more your negative karma will be dissolved and the purer you will become. So they put gold in a crucible and put it in the fire for the alloy to be removed, and then it becomes guineas. So guineas is the name of the money that was used by the English in England. So when I was a child, everything was, you buy things in guineas, and guineas was 21 shillings. So a pound was 20 shillings and a guinea was 21. So this number 21 was also important for that. And they would make gold guineas, just like you have here in the US, you have gold dollars, right? But they're worth more than $1. This soul was also real gold and came to play his part. So first of all, the soul is golden aged, then the alloy of silver is mixed in, and as the soul becomes a little impure, his power gradually decreases. So when you go from silver to copper, that is from a precious metal to a base metal. And when you go to a base metal, the tarnish happens, right? Silver also tarnishes, but gold doesn't. It gets a bit dull, but it doesn't really tarnish. And so the power is lost when it goes from silver to copper. A building is also first new, then gradually it continues to deteriorate. After 100 years, you would say it is old. So this house where we are is 130, is that right? But it doesn't feel old. Or? It's not too bad. The world also becomes old and new. It became new 5,000 years ago. So whatever's going on in this confluence age period is the reversal of the deterioration process in souls. So where did the deities go who used to live in that kingdom? Because they call the deities the immortals. And in the Gita, it talks about that this Gita knowledge is for changing from mortals to immortals. And so where are the immortals? So they're called immortals, but they do take rebirth. And after 84 births, they have now become old. The soul has become unclean, and the body has also become unclean. He, soul of Krishna, became dark from fair, and Krishna is portrayed as the fair and the dark. And he is shown with his feet towards hell and his face towards heaven. That means there is a BK picture of Krishna with the little baby Krishna with the heaven in one hand and the heaven by his feet. And then in many BKs, they removed the picture of hell and they just keep Krishna with heaven. And then the meaning of the picture is gone. Well, there you go. You too belong to that clan, the clan of Krishna, the clan of Brahma, where your feet are also towards hell and your faces are towards heaven. And you will now go to Nirvana, the world beyond sound. Then you will go to heaven. The Iron Age will be set on fire. There will be torrential rainfall, fires and earthquakes, etc. So this is all what people call climate change. So they know that they can't stop the climate change. It's impossible. So they're afraid. The impure souls will settle all their karmic accounts and return back to the home, and only a few will be left. Then pure souls will come down. At this time, all are thorns. To use the sword of lust is to prick someone. And here the Father says, you have to become completely viceless. So this incredible importance of purity, of celibacy, is the key to changing the civilization. And because none of that is used in the new civilization. So the Father says, remember me, and I will give you the inheritance of heaven, and you will become pure. When you become pure, the activity in your household was pure. That is, family life was in purity. Now you have become impure, and so the family life is also impure and vice-based. So, different civilization. In the Golden Age, your business activities are honest. There is no need to tell lies there. You only tell lies when there is greed to earn a lot of money. There you have plenty of wealth, and grain doesn't cost anything. No one is poor. But those who make very good effort become emperors, and they will get palaces inlaid with diamonds and jewels. And those who do not make full effort will become subjects. There are the king, the queen, princes, princesses, and the whole dynasty. And then there will be number-wise subjects, the wealthy and the poor. So even the poor people are pretty rich. There, everyone will be pure. There will be the king, the queen, and one advisor. And normally Baba says no advisors. Today he says one advisor. Now, the only possibility for that one advisor has to be the father of the king. Because when the king, or when the son of the king gets married, then he becomes the king. So the father is still around. And so he has to be the advisor. There are not many advisors there. So in the Copper Age and onwards, they didn't abdicate, but they died, and then the son took the throne. So the king has the power of wisdom to rule the kingdom. Therefore, you children should explain in the same way as the Father is explaining to you. We people of Bharat were deities. It used to be our kingdom in the Golden Age. And when we were residents of heaven, we were pure in the household. It was a pure household ashram. And then while gradually becoming impure, we became the residents of hell. So there was a definite time when it went from purity to impurity at the confluence of the silver to the copper. Now we are once again becoming residents of heaven. This play is predestined. So we were predestined to become BKs, no choice. It takes one birth to become the residents of heaven and 84 births to become the residents of hell. And this is shown very clearly in the picture of the ladder. It has now entered your intellects that you will go and rule in heaven. Now you are claiming that inheritance from the fathers. You're claiming power, and you're claiming experience and expertise, and you're claiming understanding of the laws of karma. So only the Father tells you the truth and changes you from an ordinary man into Narayan. So those people in bhakti who listen to the Satya Narayan Katha, the story of becoming true Narayan, do not actually change from ordinary people into Narayan, which means the story is false. Have you heard that story, what they say? And so it doesn't do any good. Basically, it's a story that you have to be honest, because God will find out that you're not honest, and he's disguised as a Brahmin, and you will lose everything, because whatever you say to God becomes true. So make sure what you say to God is what you want him to make reality, like make it so. So you are sitting here to change from ordinary people into Narayan. Those devotees do not ask to become pure and remember the one alone constantly. They just relate the story of true Narayan on the day of the full moon. And when the moon is full, it is said to be 16 celestial degrees complete. And at the end of the moon cycle, it is the new moon, just a thin crescent remaining, which they call Umavas, which is the night of darkness, the new moon night. So the golden ages, golden age and the silver age are called the day, and the copper and iron ages are called the night. And all these points have to be understood. Shiv Baba is sitting here teaching you. He is the father, the teacher, and the guru. And he enters the body of this one and teaches you souls. The father says, just as this one's soul is sitting in the center of the forehead, so I too come and sit here. I sit and explain to you. At first you were pure, but now you have become impure. So now remember me, the Father. No one can go back home without becoming pure. And when you become pure, you will fly. Everyone calls out saying, "Oh, purifier, come and purify us so that we can fly back to our home in the world of liberation." It is the home of us souls. Impure souls cannot go back home. Those who imbibe these teachings very well will go to heaven very quickly. That means without any delay. They will not be held back at the border for checking. Otherwise, they will come later. So when you are pure, you come back very quickly, and otherwise you come later on. One should go into a new home because you enjoy yourself better in a new home. So you should come down first in the golden age. Mama and Baba definitely go to heaven, so why should you go later on? You can also follow Brahma. Continue to remember the Father. If there is any difficulty about anything, you can ask Shiv Baba. Only by following Shrimat will you become elevated. In the old world, you continue to follow the directions of Ravan, the 5 vices, and the number 1 vice is body consciousness. You children now have to become soul conscious. I, a soul, am a resident of the supreme abode, which is also called Shantidam. So Paramdam, Shantidam, Nirvandam. No one else can explain such things. Only the Father explains to you souls, and you are listening to him through the organs of your body. In the golden age, no one's body gets damaged. But here, there is untimely death while just sitting somewhere. Such things do not exist in the golden age. How do you die in the golden age? You get a vision, and then you sit and you go. That is called heaven, Swarg, paradise. We go around the cycle while taking rebirth, and we have now completed our 84 births. Then Baba comes and makes you children worthy of heaven, worthy in the sense of pure and knowledgeable, capable. You have now become worthy of the new world. Now it is hell, and you have now come here to make your fortune of changing from residents of hell into residents of heaven. You say that you have come to Shiv Baba to make your fortune. And you make your fortune every cycle. Every 5,000 years, we become residents of heaven. And then, as soon as it becomes the kingdom of Ravan, we become vice-based. You can no longer operate with the power of yoga. So all are now impure and vice-based, and it is now, only now, that the Father comes and establishes the new world. And there will be only you children in the new world. All the others will go to the world of silence. Up above is the tree of souls. And the souls will then come down to the earth at their own time. When it is our kingdom, there will not be any people of any other religions or civilizations there. Then in the Copper Age, the kingdom of Ravan will start. So imbibe all these things very well. Here, you have to change from being residents of hell into residents of heaven. And the people who are residents of hell are called devils because of how they behave. And the people who are the residents of heaven are called deities because of how they function. So now everyone has a devilish nature and tend towards violence. The Father now sits here and helps you make effort. Do you experience this? He helps you make effort. He says, become pure. Continue to ask Baba in every situation. Some say to Baba, Baba, I have to lie in my business because if I don't lie, I will not make any profit, will I? If they continue to remember the Father, their sins will be cut away. It's interesting, these two sentences next to each other. So when they lie, they're doing damage and causing a lot of problems to people through their lies. You know, these whistleblowers who talk about how the big business has damaged the Amazon and the people's lungs with cigarettes and all this. And they can do that by lying. So on big business level, on little business level. And so when you cause damage, you create negative karma. So that's not called profit. So he says, if they continue to remember the Father, their sins will be cut away. In today's world, everyone continues to commit various sins, and they use bribery and corruption. The pictures at the exhibitions are maps, and these maps do not exist anywhere else, maps or charts. And even if someone would copy them when they see them, they wouldn't understand the meaning of them. There was someone who did that. They copied the pictures, but they didn't understand anything. So it didn't work out for them at all. Many people come to the exhibitions and fairs, and it is said, come and understand this knowledge for 7 days, and then you will be able to become the residents of heaven. Now you are residents of hell. It is so clear in the picture of the ladder. So in the picture of the ladder, you have at the bottom of the ladder on one side, there is the activities of hell, and next to them is tapasya. This is the impure world, and the pure world is just above in the sense that the next level up. And you children now promise to Shiv Baba, I will definitely become a resident of heaven from a resident of hell. You are now making preparations to go to the temple of Shiva, not to the temple of Shiva at all. You are going to Shivalaya, which is the world established by Shiva. It's not a temple over there. He said very clearly there are no temples in the Golden Age. So this is why you must not engage in vice. Many storms of Maya will come, but do not allow yourself to get stripped and become impure. If you break your purity, that would be a great mistake, and you would have to experience big punishment from Dharmaraj. So what punishment would you get? You will see. I made a promise, I broke the promise, and there is a lot of pain that you experience. Acha. To the sweetest beloved, long lost and now found children, love, remembrance, and good morning from the mother, the father, Bap Dada, and the spiritual father says namaste to the spiritual children. The spiritual children say namaste to the spiritual father. So that essence for dharna, in order to change from an ordinary person into a deity, renounce your devilish nature and habit of telling lies and imbibe a divine nature. How will you do that? In order to return home, definitely become pure. Even when storms of Maya come, do not perform negative karma with your physical organs. So this is all to do with violence, lust, desire, and as soon as you start to, or not just start to, but you have a completely celibate life, you will have a lot of obstacles. And this is why the religious people who practice celibacy have a very, very hard time. And they can't maintain it because they don't have power of yoga. And in BKs, if you don't have power of yoga, then also there will be that problem. So the yoga is important. A blessing is, may you be completely faithful to Baba and break away from everyone else and connect yourself to the one on the basis of true love. So true love means that you're connected with Baba because you know that he is the only one who will not betray you, who will not use you, who will not take from you. Otherwise, in untrue love, you get drained out and betrayed and all these things. So breaking away from everyone else is, do not be emotionally dependent on anyone else. Completely faithful children are those who do not have anyone except the Father's task, the Father's praise, and the Father's knowledge in their thoughts and dreams. Belong to the one Father and none other. Let the love of your intellect be constantly connected to the one. Notice that it's not love of the mind. So love of the mind is an emotion. Love of the intellect is a commitment. It's different. Then you will not be colored by the company of many. So there are many, many people who want to pull you into their circle of influence because they want to prove that they are okay and that there's nothing wrong with the impure way of life, but it doesn't work. So your first promise is you will break away from everyone else and connect the self to the one. And fulfilling this promise means fidelity, faithfulness to God. And the slogan is the original stage of your truth. It means the real stage will make you perfect in the midst of adverse circumstances. Om Shanti. There are many things to do with focus on one, which is to do with the karma. And, you know, there are just many, many BKs who think of all of this in terms of feelings and in terms of emotions. And if you do that, you put yourself in a kind of exposure to the variations of vibration and atmosphere. And, you know, you have a good day and then you have a bad day and all those things. It's all to do with how you feel about yourself and how you feel about what's going on. And this varies. And if you draw conclusions from how you feel at any given time, your conclusions will be equally variable. And that will create instability. And so one of the reasons why this word manmanabhav is used is that when you focus your mind on Shiv Baba, then you have an orientation which is independent of the variations, because life on earth is a life of variations. And, you know, you may have a situation or a circumstance, but how you feel about it will vary from moment to moment. Like, for example, you may be ill, you may have an illness. And there are some days where you feel okay about it, and other days you feel bad. Some days you come to terms with it, some days you don't. The illness is the same. It's not changing, but how you feel about it changes. And the same thing about your living situation or your work situation. There are all these variations, or in your relationships, many variations. People behave differently in different moments, all these variations. And if you operate on the basis of these variations, it creates instability. Sometimes BKs say, if they have a good stage, then they're good. And if they don't have a good stage, then they're not good. But this is also, you know, moving around according to the variations, which is nothing to do with what your stage actually is. Because you cannot judge your stage by how you feel about yourself. That's inaccurate. So what does a yogi do in the midst of variations? It is very clearly stated that you are living in circumstances of the pairs of opposites, and these are the swings. And so people who are called bipolar, which used to be called manic depressive, it's the same thing but with a different name. And it means that you can't handle how far you swing from up to down. And so they give you drugs to keep your swinging quite limited. And then it's a bit boring. So if you want to be able to swing far, and you have to be able to swing far in both directions, because if you're on a swing, it can go up, but then it's not going to stay up there. It's going to go down and go up the other side. That's how swings are. And he says swing in the swing of his lap, but that means you go up and you go down, but you're in his lap. So it's okay. And this is why he says everything needs to be in the intellect, because the intellect doesn't do swinging. 2 + 2 is 4 on a good day or a bad day or nighttime or daytime or in the golden age, silver age, copper age, iron age. It doesn't make any difference what the circumstances are. And so this is why this is called yoga of the intellect, which is another word for focus of attention. And so you focus your attention on Shiv Baba, and this gives you stability. So one kind of stability is to spin the cycle, and you get the stability that is created through the gyroscope effect of the cycle. But the other is the stability of focusing on one, even while you are swinging. Because any swing, if you think about it, you have 2 ropes and they're connected to a pole or a branch of a tree or something. And that's still. The swing is swinging, but the thing the swing is connected to is not swinging. It's still. So your focus of attention has to be on Shiv Baba, and you're following the lifestyle that he's telling, and then all the swings that happen, the variations in your stage and how you feel, even how you feel about yourself. These are variations. And you just have to know that these variations are supposed to be there, but they do not indicate that you are changing. But they seem to indicate that you are changing. This is appearance, not reality. And so the practice is said to be maintain a state of equanimity in the midst of the pairs of opposites. And there are lots of different pairs of opposites. And all these pairs of opposites are to do with how you feel. You feel differently on different days. But it doesn't mean that you are different on different days. You may behave differently on different days. But the progress of your pilgrimage is going on anyway. When you're on a physical pilgrimage and you're walking up a mountain, then the road is not like a funicular. It's not that you're going up the mountain on a wire, which is straight. You're walking, and so you're going up and down all the time. It's the nature of the terrain. So this pilgrimage is also filled with up and down, but doesn't mean that you're not moving forward. So many BKs, they think when they're going up, that's good, and when they're going down, it's not good. And that's not the way to evaluate your progress. Have a look at the map. Baba talked about maps. You're going from the Iron Age to the Golden Age, and it involves sitting in a boat that rocks. Don't jump out. The boat of truth rocks, and you're in it. And that's okay, because it's going to the other side. And that's that. And so this is why you have to have faith in the intellect and not have faith in your perception of what's going on around you. There are some people they're very influenced by all the things that they can feel. And they take these perceptions to be proof of reality. But these perceptions are, in fact, deceptive. And this is why it is said that the mind is deceptive. Because in the mind, you take in your perceptions. This is nice, this is not nice, this is makes sense, this doesn't make sense, I feel good, I don't feel good. All of this is feelings that you get in the mind. But this gyan is called knowledge. And if you feel soul conscious or you don't feel soul conscious, it doesn't make any difference to the fact that you know what is soul consciousness. What is Maya? It is an energy that pulls you out of the alignment of feeling and knowing being the same. And it puts you into a misalignment where feeling is one thing and knowing is something else. And then you have a choice. You can go with what you know or you can go with what you feel. And what you feel is going to be much stronger than what you know. But you still know what you know. And then you have a choice. Do you want to focus on what you know, which doesn't pull you so much as what you feel? Or will you go with where you're pulled? And it's a choice. And this is why Baba gives importance to willpower. Yeah. So sometimes he says, if you will all of your things to Baba, you will get willpower. And this is a very interesting statement, which you can also consider as a spiritual law. So what do we will? We will our sense of possession. And our sense of possession is very connected with our sense of identity. So people want to have influence over other people in order to feel good about themselves. So if you have a position, that position brings influence because other people respect you for your position. And that's because they cannot distinguish between you and your position. Because there is also this thing that, a question that I used to ask a long time ago to people who felt something regarding position. And I would ask, is it better to be a weak soul in a powerful position or a powerful soul in a weak position? And every so often you experience yourself to be in a powerful position. And you experience that other people look up to you when you're in a powerful position. But it doesn't mean that you're a powerful soul. But it will make you feel, I must be a powerful soul because I'm in a powerful position. But you may not be a powerful soul. And if you're in position and you're not a powerful soul, that position will corrupt you. It will make you use your power to bring someone under your influence for the purpose of making yourself feel higher than you really are. And many people fall in that trap. It's very, very common. And Baba is all the time looking and seeing, okay, how are you handling your situations according to his system of evaluation, which may be not the same as our system of evaluation. And then when you are in a weak position, or you don't have any discernible position, then you may feel that you are less than because other people don't look up to you when you're not in a powerful position. But is your position in terms of your sense of self, is it determined by people who don't look up to you? You can't allow that, because these are people who are blind. All they see is matter. They can't see who you are. And yet you give them power over you to let you know whether you're okay or not. And according to Gyan, that means your third eye is shut. And you let yourself be influenced by blind people. And that means that you're away from God. And so when you come under the influence of these feelings and perceptions, then that's the mind. Whereas the intellect, it doesn't really deal in feelings. And so a lot of people, they say, well, in that case, then BK is not okay because you have to have feelings. Many people say that, you're dry, you're fake, you're unreal, whatever. And of course, we have to have everything in balance. But we don't have to be deceived by the mind such that we go against what we know. And you can also make a comparison of this with the voice of conscience. Because when you come in Gyan, the conscience gets activated and it will indicate to you in a very, very small voice, this is not right. But your mind will give you a very big voice, this is right. And when a person follows the conscience, the little voice of conscience, it'll cost you because you have to renounce the desire to follow the deception of the mind. But then what you actually lose is a lot more by following that. And what you lose by not following that is not that much. It seems a lot, but it's not that much. And so there's always this big question of the opposition, really, of the mind and the intellect. And so when he says, keep the love of your intellect with Baba, it's a very good indicator to tell you that your relationship with Baba is not to be calculated by how you feel. I remember one time when I was very, very new in Gyan, and I said to Dadi, Dadi, I absolutely don't love God. I can't feel anything. She laughed. She said, what are you talking about? Look at what you're doing. Obviously you love God. It's nothing to do with how you feel. But most people don't get it. And they just think if you feel it, it's there. If you don't feel it, it's not there. And that's a mistake. But it is such a prevalent idea, just as the knowledge of omnipresence is a very prevalent idea. But this idea that if you can feel it, it's real. And if you can't feel it, it's not real. But that's a mistake. And it's all to do with perception. And Now, we're in the world of fake news, right? Algorithms and all this stuff. And so it's all the time testing, testing, testing. You know, do you know what's real? Or do you feel what's real? Because if you go on the basis of feeling, you will get thoroughly messed up. But there are people who cannot follow what they know. And that's probably like a really bad situation if you want to be a yogi. You will say, I don't feel pure, therefore I'm not pure. That's not true. That's absolutely wrong. Or there are some who say, oh, I feel I'm the best in the world. I can do all the vices and still be a spiritual person because it feels good. There are a lot like that. But it's deceptive. In both directions, it's deceptive.
This was a wonderful, important point that you clarified, feeling and knowing. Very important. Because I would go into that trap a little bit, not too much, that I don't feel love towards Baba. So, maybe I need to do something and so on. So thank you for that. Baba says that Baba mentions about experience, experience it. So isn't experiencing something, feeling it? Experience God's love.
Well, this is where people get into a lot of trap because BKs are always talking about experience and practice the avyakt stage and practice the blissful stage and all of this type of thing. And so it's quite a deceptive interpretation of that that idea of practicing different stages. And, what happens is a very, very strong thing in the devotional people, because the devotional people get impressed when someone has a vision or something like this, or they talk about, oh, I had this experience and that experience and the other experience, and therefore I am highly spiritual, and therefore you must respect me. Faulty logic. You may have a very powerful experience, and that's really between you and Baba, because he does reward yogis with experiences, which he calls gifts. But how you interpret that reward is up to you, and how you use that. And so if he gives you a very powerful experience of being with you, present with you, it's a message. Bear in mind, even when you don't feel it, he's there. So sometimes he'll let you feel it so that you know, but not all the time. He will let you know maybe once in a blue moon, but you have to take it that he's always there. So bear it in mind. But some people, it's a very subtle thing. You can actually generate experiences, artificial experiences. This is why people take drugs. They want artificial experience. And they can't tell the difference between the real and the artificial. And this is why we have in the picture of the 8 powers, 2 diamonds, a real one and a fake one. The fake one looks better than the real one, but is fake. And so a lot of people have an experience which may be a genuine experience, but they interpret it incorrectly, which means they falsify the experience. And so there's that. And some people, they don't have any experience, and then they doubt, because having an experience doesn't prove or disprove. But people who are genuine yogis, genuinely they love God, they love truth, they will get some experiences. They don't need much, a little bit. And it's enough to get it. Does that answer your question?
The goal of whatever I'm practicing is to become Sato Pradhan, and essence of truth. Truth is truth. It is what it is. And but truth in my presence, not just in my understanding, but also in my energy which I'm carrying through, energy that is working in my mind, which is creating thoughts and leading towards actions and interactions, experiences and stuff. But isn't it the goal, knowing the truth? 7-day course will get the truth, but holding on to it all the way through in all layers of our presence.
What's really your question?
Question is, I'm getting a mixed signals, because especially when we have feelings, right? So we can always make up stuff in the head, and then we can generate our own misconception about a person, and then create a very anger and negative stage inside yourself. And at the same time, you can hold the truth, which is also beautiful, which is also you can feel. Like when Baba says Baba Satchitananda, it's like an experience. And same thing when we use my head, I can always come up with some intellectual logic that can mislead or take me away, even though it is not generating any feeling, but it's intellectual stimulation that can go.
Yeah, but it would still be on the basis of a perception. So, for example, you will see a person, and inside yourself, you may compare yourself with that person, or that person's position, or their capacity, and it may create a jealousy. But you won't notice that it's creating a jealousy. But if someone's, what they have makes you feel what you don't have, and this will create a jealousy, and that will color your vision of that person, and that will make you not like them or treat them badly or something like this. And the foundation of it is jealousy, but jealousy is very secret, incognito, in that you don't feel it. A jealousy is not an emotion. It's a distortion of how you perceive a person that makes you act antagonistically to that person, but you won't notice it. And that's incredibly deceptive, because you'll think that you are justified because you see something wrong with that person, you see. And that is the incredible power of jealousy. And I remember Daddy Janki would talk about this sometimes. And I remember there was small group, and people were asking questions. I can't remember exactly what the questions were, but I remember being very surprised when she said, well, this is all jealousy going on here. And I was, jealousy? Because, usually the way jealousy is described mostly is like, is a feeling. You feel jealous. And I think it's not. I mean, sometimes people may feel jealous, but if you feel jealous and you know that you're jealous, you can control it. But if you don't feel it, then you won't recognize that what you're doing is because of jealousy and how it alters your perception and makes you judge a person. And so the origin of it is that in your relationship with someone, you're comparing yourself with someone and you see yourself less than that person, and it creates an intellectual justification for interacting with that person in an antagonistic way, which you feel justified in doing because you see that it's right to do that, but actually it's not. So this is very deceptive. And you see, Maya, this is called Maya, right? So Maya makes you see something which isn't there and act on something which there is no justification for, but you have a lot of justification for it. And then it creates an antagonism in the relationship. And then the harmony is broken. And this is the problem of the Ram-Sita thing. Because if you remember the story, you see, in the Ramayana, first of all, I mean, every step of the story is based on deception. Every step that the king was deceived by the wife, who was deceived by the maid, something like this. And then Ram saw Sita as something other than what she was and treated her accordingly. And then eventually, everything depended on the views of the laundryman. How can a king come under the influence of the laundryman? That doesn't make any sense at all. That means you've completely devolved your power to the mind, to perception, to public opinion. And public opinion, what other people tell you, is very, very dangerous, because they will say things like, oh, you're in the center. How come you're not playing this role or that role? What's wrong with you? And you'll say, oh, yeah, you're right. I should do that. Actually, they've deceived you. And what they did is they activated a ego, because the ego is a feeling of being less than or inferior, or that you look like not high enough or something like this. And you can get deceived into doing something which actually destroys your actual position. Because actually you have a good position, but somebody makes you think that you don't have a good position, and then makes you do something which destroys the good position that you do have. And you don't get it. And that's called deception.
So I like the sequence, and taking the same sequence like sthiti, drishti, and then sthiti based on the truth, which is smriti of the truth, and then not under the perception colored by how you feelings and all that.
Yes, because it's what you see and what you hear, and a lot of it is what you hear. And so this thing of public opinion, and there is a phrase that is used in law, and it's a Latin phrase, and I can never remember it, but it goes along the lines that the most deceptive thing of all is the opinion of the public. And what you have in all of these conspiracy theories is that. Okay. Because public opinion. And I heard it say in the internet, people talking about the internet, that it's got so much stuff in it, most of which is like trivial or incorrect, that the really important stuff that's there gets totally, it disappears because you can't find this needle in a haystack, or you can't distinguish the wheat from the chaff.
This is nice. So the questions here are, there's a long comment followed by a question. A senior instrument shared his experience of getting visions long back, 30 years ago. He said Baba showed him vision of golden age and destruction. He also said he knows how he will leave the body. He left the body recently. However, he left the body in a different way than what he mentioned earlier. Is the task of visions to develop the faith and reality much more than we could ever imagine?
Well, no. You can get visions from Baba. You can get visions from Maya. You need to know the difference. And this is what I was saying earlier, that devotional people believe that if somebody gets a vision, it means something about that person. And Baba made it very clear that in the early days, everybody had visions of Krishna and all this. Some people stayed with Baba, but most of them left. There are lots of visions, but they left because as soon as you had to practice purity or whatever, so thank you very much. So the vision was like going to the movies. And he said he gave visions to entertain, because 14 years sitting there, you got to have some entertainment. And so visions do not really prove or disprove. And when you get a vision, you may not be able to interpret it. And when Baba gives you a vision, like the one that you said about how you're going to leave the body, I remember Daddy Janki talked about having a vision of seeing from Mount Abu, seeing the whole thing turn into volcanoes, and she was watching the destruction from up there. And this can be from a high stage, because a mountain is symbolic of a high stage. And you can interpret your vision in lots of different ways. But, sometimes you have a vision of something, like in my experience of visions, I have experienced. And, but on no occasion was it something like, you will leave the body in this way and not that way. But I saw, the Shiv Baba, and I said, what is this? Doesn't make sense. I don't know what this is. I need explanation. Send me. And I saw Daddy Janki looking like a male. And I thought, oh, who's this? And so other person who was the first American BK, also had just one vision, which he said, oh, it was like a slide coming right across reality, you know. And visions are like that. You're awake and you see the normal world, and then there's another thing that comes instead of it, and it's like, what is this? And then it stays with you, and you spend your rest of your life trying to figure out, what does this mean, and why was this? And then you get a lot of BKs go off in trance, offering bhog and seeing little golden boxes with little messages on rakis and stuff like that. And you know, nice, but it's no substitute for the study, you know, because how you will leave your body, you don't know, because that's your exam. And he's not going to give you your exam details in advance. So if the person left the body in a way differently than how the vision was, it's because leaving the body is your exam, you know. So the vision doesn't have a task to develop deep faith. The vision is a phenomenon. And developing deep faith, the task, the vision doesn't have a soul. Only souls can have a task. And your task is to develop deep faith. And you may use the experience of a vision to help you do that, but there is no substitute for studying the knowledge and understanding, because a vision is a perception. It's like in the mind, as a feeling. And, you know, if you have a nice vision, but you're having a bad day the next day, and then you will make assumptions about your vision because you're not feeling good the next day. But that's all deceptive. What's not deceptive is you're a soul. A soul is immortal, and it's a point of light. So you get all the information, but you have to process that information. A vision won't help you with that. The study will help you with that. And when you take exams, they're for real. And all of these matters of Maya, matters of deception, help you to understand the difference between reality and non-reality. And it's very, very subtle. The differences are so tiny that you can very, very easily be deceived. So I think the main point of all this, what we're doing, is to gain experience in a world which is full of deceptions, inside, outside, in your body, in your mind, in your past, in your future, and the people around you. And the merit is in not getting deceived by a deception. And so you have the comparison of the Ramayana, where the king was totally under the influence of toxic conventional morality, totally. And that's why it's called a failure. And then in the discussion between Krishna and Arjuna, where it's the Gita, Arjuna is constantly arguing for toxic conventional morality, and Krishna is saying, what are you, ridiculous, don't do that. Kill this person. He said, no, you can't kill your relatives. Yes, you can. Kill him. Anyway, you can't kill him because he's already immortal, so go kill him. What? You know? So you have to really understand. And the difference between the Golden Age and the Silver Age is indicated in the difference between the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. And he says very clearly, if you go with the Ramayana, that's called failing. And if you go with the Mahabharata, with the Gita, you got to understand things that are difficult to understand, but understand it anyway. Keep studying because you will get it. And very few people make it to the end of the road. You get taken out by Maya, which is deception, because of feelings. So what a drama we have here.
There are a few questions here. I'll go in sequence.
Okay.
Another Murli Baba said Shiv Baba is everyone's father. Brahma Baba is called grandfather. Why?
Well, Shiv Baba is the father of all the souls, and Brahma Baba is the father of the tree of humanity. And so we are his children, but it is said in Bhakti that Brahma is the great-great-grandfather. So he's the seed of the human world tree. And then in other occasions, Shiv Baba is the grandfather because we got to receive his inheritance, which we can't receive from the father, but we receive it when Shiv Baba is the father of Brahma and Brahma is our father, so Shiv Baba is our grandfather, then we can get the inheritance. Because we cannot get the knowledge, which is the inheritance, without Brahma Baba.
And the other question from Sister Jan is, can it be said that by paying attention to what I think will show the deception, without perception of the thoughts, I will always be misled by my own efforts? So mind is really the trap I have to become aware of, is it?
I think it would be a bit confusing if you do it like that. I think it's more simple if you say that perceptions of people's behavior and people is received in the mind. And how you interpret your thoughts determines whether or not you're deceived. If you think about it like that, it may be a bit easier to manage.
So now the question around the book. Why is Thursday book message, what they see in the trance, different for different instruments? What are the contributing factors for this difference? Is it based on individual intellect, clarity, purity?
You know, when someone goes in trance and has an experience with Baba, that's personal to them, and everybody's different. So that's why it's different. Nothing to do with anything else.
Yes, so Sister Mary is asking, how about psychedelic compared to the real vision?
Well, psychedelic is fake. And what it depends on what kind of drug you're using. But the one that's mostly psychedelic is LSD. And what LSD does is it has an effect on your brain because your perception is processed through your brain. And what the brain will do with LSD is it will make everything sort of enhanced. So drugs will affect your brain. Like if you have pain, they'll give you morphine. You can have some pretty nice visions on morphine as well. But it's fooling around with the brain chemistry. And, you know, a vision that Baba gives is different, but very, very few people get real proper visions. A lot of people get something they call a vision. And that's why it's eventually, Baba said, there's so many people created so many visions, which were, and he would say Maya will interfere with the trance experience because people kind of make it up and this and that. And so he said, okay, we'll stop all this. Now you just stick with the knowledge. And yeah, we've got all the knowledge we need to be able to understand what he's talking about. So it's not needed.
So she's asking, is flashback or vision?
A flashback is different. That's connected with trauma. Because you see, all this goes on in the mind. And we already talked about how the mind can be very, very deceptive. And flashbacks, you see, when you pass through a very traumatic experience, there's a very strong imprint on your chit. And I remember an interesting experience that I had in that regard. And I was for 10 nights in the civil hospital in India as a person who's looking after a patient who was extremely severely injured and subsequently died. And I was sitting there from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. every night in the ICU in the civil hospital, which looks pretty much like a battle hospital of the First World War, pretty much like that. And the floor was made of marble, which many Indian floors are made of marble. And every so often there would be an accident victim coming in and then dying. Mostly it was motorcycle accidents, so the people were pretty banged up, And burns, I saw people whose bodies were totally black, 95% burned, and then they would be screaming and then they would die. And like that was going on for 10 days. And I was dealing with the hospital staff who didn't understand how to work the monitors and didn't, it was like really catastrophic thing. And for quite a while after that, whenever I would see a marble floor, it would go take me back there. And I thought, yeah, this is how it works. You have something that's associated with that heavy experience, and it will take you back there in a second. And people who are at war, they get these flashbacks because they see things and they experience bombs and all of this stuff, or people see their relatives getting exploded in a bomb and they themselves are half exploded, and anything can bring it back because it has a forceful impact on your mind, and you just have to process it and get through it. And it's I think you have to just include these things in life. Life has bad things in it, and it doesn't mean that it has to take you down. They're not normally for pleasant memories. When you have a very pleasant memory and you remember it again, they wouldn't really use the word a flashback for that, because these flashbacks are violent things. Yeah. And a pleasant memory is like, oh, yeah, I remember that. And it's like nice,
Yeah, something which is traumatic, we keep it on the surface because it is part of survival instinct, because we don't want it to happen.
Well, it's violence, you see. And when there's trauma is a word meaning violence, And it's also a word meaning dream. Traum in German is the word for dream. Traum is from trauma. And it's that it will strike you in the subconscious and in the conscious, but it'll strike the subconscious very heavily. And then it'll bleed through, you know. And sins are also in many ways traumatic, because usually in religions, they talk of sins as something that you did to somebody which was not good. But mostly the bad sin is what somebody did to you, and you took it in and it corrupted your soul and bent it out of shape. So most of the sins that he's talking about is what people do to you. But religious people don't believe in those things. But they're there. Big time.
So there is a comment here. Sister Michelle is telling, thanks for describing how feelings can deceive. I have fallen into the trap over and over again. I know I have been addicted to the feelings I receive when my actions cause someone else to experience happiness. I can now perceive what Baba is asking for to be true only to him.
Very good. Yeah.
And one more question came. As we are working our way back to purity, reliving these past traumas is part of what will come back up? A question.
Well, it depends, you know, because these things are very individual. But everybody has something that they can't get over, you know, and this is why it's a little bit comparable to an addiction, because when somebody is in addiction recovery, they have multiple addictions, but there's one which is called your drug of choice, which you can't give up. You can give up all the others, but not that one. And in BK, it's not about drugs, but it's about there is something that you have that you cannot give up. And that is really your Achilles heel. That is the big thing. And you don't have to work on anything else except that one. Because once you've got that one, you've got the whole of them. But you need to be able to discern it, and you have to be ready to deal with it long term, because it will take you your entire life to deal with it. And that is called Purusharartha. That's a real effort. And you have to use every trick in the book to deal with it. Everything. Because it's the one thing that you can't get over. That's the game.
So there are two things, like one, there is science where people really figure out how things work and what is what. And there is engineering, application of the science in action, right? So science by itself will not bring any benefit unless it is put into action. And engineering has no basis without science. So, I mean, I'm just using the sequence. So
Yes.
here, if we have to do both when we are working on ourselves. Well, decipher what's the problem and then act, shift your smriti and then change the perception. Is that
well
thinking?
What we need to do is to try to understand what yoga is, because to me yoga is a resonance. And I don't know about technology in that respect, but I think that, you know, that when person who I know is doing or did a PhD in how to deliver medication directly to the cells using anti-gravity. And I'm not sure exactly how it works, but I do think that there is some branch of science which is connected with medicine, which is to do with healing through resonance. And I think that yoga is also healing the soul, because you can say the Tamopradhan stage is a very gross stage, and the Satopradhan stage is a very subtle stage. And the Dadis were always telling us, you've got to get into the subtle stage of consciousness so that you can do this properly. And that means that you have to be on that resonance. This is why we have so much focus on purity, the celibacy, the food, the atmosphere, all of these things are a different, we call it vibration, right? And vibration is another word for resonance. And when you're connected with Baba, it changes your resonance. And that also changes the effect. I mean, your aura changes, your how the vibrations of your physical body changes, and you become different from a regular person whose vibrations are very gross. And this shifting of the vibration also gets you connected to your purity, and it also causes the impurity to erupt and come out. And so you can look at it from a chemical analogy or a vibration analogy. Also sound, you see, you can use sound to kill someone. When you cause a vibration of a certain level, and there is this thing called the Havana syndrome, which is using vibrations to damage people, which is used between, United States and Russia. They use these weapons, which are resonance, which destroy people's brains. And so we're also using resonance to become at a different level. And so they're using it in a destructive way because it depends on the frequency that you select. And for example, advertising, they will cut the things at a rate which is damaging the brain so that they can make people into some sort of zombies and then make them buy their products which they don't need or want. And you use the correct vibration and a person can really have much greater clarity, and because they're in the same frequency as God. And they come to the same frequency as, like, the feeling of soul consciousness is different vibration, right? And the more the world is getting really very, very dense, very negative vibration, the more it's difficult to do yoga because you have to combat that. But you have to do it anyway.